which would add a transmission looping facility in Franklin County and would extend gas transmission pipeline throughout Addison County to the International Paper Mill in Ticonderoga, New York. And would also construct 2 gate stations for distribution service in Cornwall and Shoreham, Vermont. I'm Jim Bowles. I'm the chair of the Public Service Board. With me this evening, my fellow board members, John Burke to my left and Margaret Cheney to my right. We also have staff here who've been around collecting signatures for people who want to speak. So I hope everyone's aware that if you want to speak tonight, you need to sign up. And the sign-up sheets are in the back of the room at the table near the entrance. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to provide an opportunity for the public to comment to the Public Service Board regarding the proposed construction of Phase 2 of the Addison Pipeline. Tonight's public hearing is being transcribed by a court reporter who's down front here. The transcript, along with other written comments received by the board, will be included in the case's public file so that the board members, the staff, and the participants in the case can review and consider your comments. In my experience, these comments are especially helpful in identifying issues or perspectives for the board to consider that perhaps the other parties haven't raised, and so we look forward to hearing your input. Please be advised that this is not the only opportunity for you to provide comments to the board. You can also provide input in writing by email or regular mail. And our email address is on our website, but I'll say it quickly now. And it's up on the easel is here to my left. So I'm not going to bother to say it because it's full of letters and it'll be confusing. Additional information about this case is also available on our website, which you can get to off of the state's website. Finally, I want to explain briefly the board's function in this process. The board is a quasi-judicial agency charged with making decisions in cases regarding public utilities and with deciding energy infrastructure such as a pipeline. Under Vermont's regulatory structure, there is a separate state agency, the Department of Public Service, that is charged with representing the interests of the people of the state in proceeding before the board. And there are representatives here tonight from the department. They're down front. That's Louise Porter and TJ, or they are from the Department of Public Service, and their role is to represent the public interest. I'd like to briefly go over the format for tonight's hearing. If you want to speak, please make sure you have put your name on one of the 2 sign-up sheets that our staff are collecting, as I said earlier, in the back of the room. In order to assure that the hearing proceeds as fairly as possible, we will alternate between the 2 sign-up sheets as we move forward. We are going to try to get through everybody if possible. We have at this point around 80 people who have signed up, and we have 3 hours from now until 10 o'clock. And I'd like to fit everybody in, so I'm going to have to start by limiting everyone to 2 minutes. And then if we get through everyone and there's still time left, if there's somebody else who would like to add to what they said earlier, or if new people have arrived who didn't have a chance to speak, we can hear them at that point. But then once we get to 10 o'clock, we'll be ending at that time. I'd also like to especially focus your attention to one thing, which is to make sure you focus your comments on Phase 2 of the pipeline. That's really what the most important. That's why we're here. That's the decision we're trying to make. Should we approve Phase 2, and if yes, under what conditions? So it's the most helpful if you focus your comments on that actual project. Board members, Mr. Burke or Ms. Cheney, do you have anything to add?
If you feel limited, and I'm sure some of you will, by the 2-minute limit we've had to impose because of the number of people who want to speak, please do send your comments amplified or fresh in writing to us at the board, because we pay close attention to everything we receive.
Yeah, we use these comments when we get to the technical hearing. Parties develop evidence in front of us in the technical hearings that we'll have to make a decision on. But I can't remember a major case, and I'm sure this will be no exception, where the comments that you make to us on nights like this, something will stir our memories and will in fact make sure that some line of questioning gets pursued. If the parties don't do it, we'll do it ourselves. I'm sort of famous for doing that, so I just want you to know that that's where these comments really hit the road and help us to be able to get to the bottom of these cases. I'm going to be telling you when it's 2 minutes tonight. And I'd ask for your respect, not only for us, but for all the others in this audience. I know that there may be things that you want to say that's going to carry beyond 2 minutes, and they may seem incredibly important to you. And I'm sure that they may even be important to us, but if you do that on a regular basis, you are going to have some of the people that have signed up that will not be able to speak tonight. So try to remember them, try to be fair to them, and try to be fair to your neighbors here tonight by respecting that 2 minute limit. Thanks.
Thank you. So the way we'll do this is I'll call 2 or 3 names, and then if the people could come up to the mic up here, state your name for the court reporter, and spell your last name if it's not obvious how to spell it, and then go ahead and start your comments. If you have them already written out, in addition to giving them orally, you could turn in your written copy as well, especially if it's longer than what you actually said. We read all the comments, including if you send us emails, we read all of those as well. You can also go to our webpage and leave comments there. So, and we read all of that. So feel free to tell us everything you want to tell us. So I'd like to start with Paul Stone, and then have Morris Palmer and Ron Slavo ready to go right after Paul finishes. Thank you. Mr. Stone.
Thank you. My name is Paul Stone. We have a family farm in Orwell.
Microphone is not on.
No, it doesn't sound like it is.
You may need to focus right into it.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Paul Stone from Orwell. We have a family farm. And I'm in favor of phase 2 of the natural gas pipeline to supply the Ticonderoga paper plant. My only hope is that someday we'll have natural gas in Orwell. I agree with the Vermont goal of 90% renewables by the year 2015, but I also know that fossil fuels will be needed for a long time until the renewables are online and dependable. I hope in your consideration of phase 2 that you will follow the same line of reasoning and come to similar logical conclusions as found in the certificate public number phase 1. In addition, and particularly, I urge you to thoroughly investigate the probable reductions in emissions from the burning of natural gas versus fuel oil now used at the paper plant. We must reduce CO2, heavy metals, and other pollutants that cause health problems of people and harm to the environment. This is important to Vermont since generally we are downwind of the paper plant, and many of these emissions are very harmful. I also urge you, in particular, again, and to really investigate the use of natural gas to replace diesel fuel in trucks and buses here in Vermont, as is already going on in the city of Burlington. We have long known that diesel fuel is a carcinogen, and there is new evidence recently published in Environmental Health Perspectives that air pollution is linked to autism. According to this recent Harvard study, pregnant women living in high pollution areas are twice as likely to have children with autism. One such pollutant is diesel fuel containing particulates and mercury. I hope the Public Service Ordinance Certificate requires the Vermont Gas to promote, to sponsor, perhaps even to subsidize natural gas as a replacement for diesel fuel. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Morris Palmer.
Hello, my name is Morris Palmer. I live in North Ferrisburgh. I'm 23 years old, and I'm a little pissed because your generation got to enjoy cheap fossil fuel without having to worry about things like climate change. Human excess has ruined it for my generation. I will never be able to own a powerful car from the golden age of gasoline, at least not in good conscience or on my budget. I'm stuck with a hybrid, a Prius. A little one. It's like you guys took out an energy loan with really high interest, and now my generation is the one who gets to pay it off. Even video games nowadays teach you to preserve your natural resources and make sure they last. There's only so much farmland where we can grow our food on this earth. I mean, 80% of it's water. You know, there's only so much land. and you're trying to put industrial infrastructure through the middle of some of the best agricultural land in the state. Unfortunately, because of human greed, efficiency is driven more by economics than ecology. This pipeline project is not for me. It is not for my neighbors or their neighbors. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's for a bunch of rich people that want to make more money. The way I see it is that you are the ones making the decision if this thing gets built or not. It all rests on your certificate of public good. You already made a decision that I certainly don't agree with on phase 1. And I'm asking that you don't allow them to take out another energy loan that my generation will probably never be able to pay back. Do it for my generation and those that may come after me. Do it for the planet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron Slabaugh. I believe that phase 2 is not in the public interest for many reasons, but I want to use my time here to point to the issue of externalization of costs. Externalization refers, of course, to the economic practice where some of the costs of producing a product or service are transferred from the price of the goods to the public commons, the air, the water, and in many cases to private citizens. Much of the public, I include myself here, often indirectly support this practice as it lowers the prices for the goods and services that we need, even if at a great cost to the air, the water, the forests, or private property. The toxic sludge on the bottom of the lake offshore from International Paper is a past example of that companies externalizing the cost of dealing with toxic waste. Phase 2 threatens to continue this externalization as the sludge is disturbed by tunneling and other potential adverse effects on the lake. There are many other examples of externalization of the true cost of this project. Our taxes pay for this process of determining the public good, not Vermont gas systems. We all bear the brunt of the degradation of the air, the groundwater, the risk of accidents, cost of emergency response, and other damages coming from the project. Also, the landowners whose property is seriously compromised bear these costs along with the costs of resisting this intrusion that they never wanted. Some of the costs of the capital needed to build this pipeline has already been externalized to current and past BGS ratepayers, as well as extensive advertising costs attempting to sell this project to the public. The pipeline would not be viable in today's energy market if all of these expenses were internalized rather than transferred to external entities. Fracking itself has huge externalization costs into the atmosphere that affect us all. I also see the investment in more fossil fuel infrastructure, delaying the development of renewable energy sources as an externalized cost. Approval of this project, primarily benefiting two large multinational corporations, is clearly not in the public good. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call Mr. Reardon, I can't read the first name, or Ms. Reardon, Leslie Reagan Cure, and Andy Boyanowski. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Ethan Reardon and I live in Starksboro. I am 16 years old and I'm really disappointed in you people. You guys are adults and adults are supposed to make responsible and ethical decisions and you completely boned it in phase 1. Yeah, I might be one of the few young people to speak out against this, but this is only because most of the kids my age are not aware of what you do, and what this is going to do to our climate and how it's going to affect our lives in the future. How are us kids supposed to get educated about this stuff when the truth is hidden from people my age, and everyone else for that matter? It isn't about the curriculum, sure isn't in the curriculum at school. From my perspective, saying that this is a bridge fuel won't cut it. A transition like this would do more harm than good. We need to use more renewables like the sun and wind. Some people might want gas because they think they're going to save a bunch of money, but they don't want to discuss what will have to happen for them to get it. This is Addison County. We are united and we are all connected. It isn't about benefits for people in the city, but it's also about people who get stepped on for them to get that fuel. Please do the right thing and deny phase 2. Thank you.
Leslie Regan-Cayer Middlebury, REAGAN-CAER. I want to talk to you about Lake Champlain. According to the Vermont Agency for Natural Resources, approximately 188,000 people living in the Lake Champlain Basin depend on the lake for drinking water. Also, according to the agency, mercury and PCBs, a suspected human carcinogen, have settled in the lake's sediments. Installing a pipeline 30 feet below the bottom of Lake Champlain will stir up toxic sediment accumulated on the lake floor. Even if the bottom lands of the lake are disturbed only during the drilling process, these toxins that have remained in the sediment for decades will be stirred up and will enter the water supply. So what we're considering is threatening the health of Lake Champlain and the drinking water supply of nearly 200,000 people for the sake of a handful of phase 2 gas customers. Is it in the public good to grant a phase 2 certificate so that gas can be delivered to just a handful of users in Cornwall and Shore? Or is it more truly in the public good to protect the health of nearly 200,000 people by safeguarding the drinking water supply from the actual threat of toxins stirred up by horizontal directional drilling? I trust that the Public Service Board, like the rest of us, will find an honest answer to this. An estimated 500,000 people visit parks along Champlain each summer. Visitor spending within a 3-mile radius of Lake Champlain during the summer has been estimated at $107 million in a report on sustainable economic development. Damage to Lake Champlain would affect not only our own Vermont economy, but that of our neighbors across the lake in New York. A recent study done on tourism in the Adirondacks found that more than $1 billion was generated in 2009, nearly all of which came from counties that are part of the Lake Champlain Basin. An economy based on any single employer, such as IP in this instance, is neither a stable nor reliable foundation for economic stability in the region. Shall we damage Lake Champlain for the financial benefit of a single employer like IP, or is it more truly in the public good to protect the health of Lake Champlain and the respective $100 million and $1 billion diversified tourism economies of both Vermont and New York? Which decision will lead to broad-based economic stability and security in the region? Again, I trust we all will find an honest answer to this question.
Thank you. While he's coming up, if Graham Huffman and Ivor Hughes and Linda Anderson Kretsch could come up and be ready, that'd be good. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Wojnowski. I'm here on behalf of the Eddy Farm School for Horse and Rider. We're a nonprofit organization on 120 acres, a mile and a half from downtown Middlebury. We serve the community with a variety of horseback riding programs, summer camps, therapeutic riding, private lessons, boarding, competitive three-phase eventing in the summer. Our 20-acre hayfield that borders Otter Creek, the proposed pipeline is scheduled to run right down the middle of that field. That field is the core of our farm. Without our hay harvest, our ability to serve the community is greatly diminished. We've been there for half a century doing what we do. In the 5 years that my wife and I have managed the farm, this is the second threat of eminent domain since we've been there. The field is very low and it borders Otter Creek and it's very wet. It's sensitive. It's a wetland in essence, and the ability to get the hay off is tricky at best. The margin to get in there and do that is tricky, and I fear that the construction of this pipeline could disrupt our field significantly. It wouldn't take much to do that. Also, the nature of our business, horseback riding is very sensitive. And throughout the summer, it's not uncommon to have 12 young boys and girls on horseback during a summer camp, riding probably 100 yards from where the construction would be set to happen, which is dangerous. And and our borders are riding, and so in essence, the construction would greatly influence our daily function. And not only do we stand to not benefit whatsoever from this, but the farm and the community that we serve stand to lose greatly, and our services would be diminished. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, Anderson, Beth?
Hi, my name is Linda Anderson Creech, K-R-E-C-H.
Speak up.
What kind of project qualifies for a certificate of public good? A project that provides a boost to the local economy could enhance the public good if it created new jobs, for example. A project that provides infrastructure that enhances the functioning of the community, such as a highway, which improves the traffic flow. Section 248 lists the prerequisites for issuance of a certificate of public good. It states, before the Public Service Board shall issue a certificate of public good, it shall find that the construction, quote, is required to meet the need for present and future demand for service, and will not have an undue adverse effect on aesthetics, historic sites, air and water purity, the natural environment, and the public health and safety. This proposed pipeline project would not provide needed jobs in our community, nor would it enhance the functioning of our community. It is not required to meet a demand for service in Vermont, and it could have a disastrous effect on public health and safety, air and water purity, and the natural environment. This country was founded on our right to own and control our own property. Anytime we violate this standard by using eminent domain, we must be wholeheartedly and unequivocally convinced that the benefits of the project justify a sacrifice of property rights. But where are those benefits? Our community has no national need for a transmission pipeline. The truth is that our land is needed for a project that others would benefit from, but our landowners would pay for, with the loss of autonomy, privacy, property values, peace of mind, and possibly their own safety. How can we provide a Vermont certificate of public good for a project that provides 99% of its benefit to an out-of-state private corporation while posing such risk to our public health and safety? It doesn't add up. It certainly doesn't sound like public good as the law defines it.
Ivor Hughes, Moncton, H-U-G-H-E-S. I have 2 points to make tonight. First, to present to the towns and people who will be affected by Phase 2 some lessons learned from Moncton's experience. Second, to present to the PSB the total inequity of this process to towns that are simply in the way of the gas pipeline. When Vermont Gas applied to the PSB for a certificate of public good, it unleashed upon Moncton a series of events that is costing the town dearly. Unlike surrounding towns that will benefit from the cheap gas, Moncton derives no benefit from this pipeline and has become a sacrificial town. The PSB appears to have forgotten, or were unaware, or neglected to understand what their process imposed on us. This is a complex project that has serious ramifications to the town and homeowners who lay in the path of this pipeline. You could not expect us to just rubber stamp everything fed to us by Vermont Gas, whose questionable business practices and tactics you have no doubt read about in the numerous negative articles and letters published in the press. I believe that Moncton taxpayers and householders in the path of this pipeline should not have to fork out their hard-earned cash to pay for this process that you imposed on us. As this pipeline is for the public good, I therefore tonight am going to submit to you an invoice as a taxpayer of Moncton for the sum of $27,000 payable to the town. This is monies that the town has had to come up with to act in accordance with your VSP project. This is hard-earned money that should have been used to pay towards a town truck, fire station addition, or our schools. I encourage all towns and householders in the path of this pipeline in a similar situation to also seek reimbursement for all fees that they've incurred dealing with this process. You didn't ask for this, you shouldn't have to pay for it.
My name is Fran Putnam. I'm from Weybridge. I'm here for one reason only, and that reason is climate change. This is what motivates me in everything I do these days. It's the main preoccupation. It's what I do with my time. I don't believe that natural gas is a bridge fuel. I believe that we need to jump straight from the fuel that is being used now, the heating oil, straight to renewables. The reason I feel this is because I know that climate scientists have said that we have 2 years to turn around climate change at most. We may be already at the end of that road. So I ask myself, what if International Paper has $70 million that they're willing to put towards a new source of energy, what kind of solar array could they build for $70 million? What alternative energy could they use? Why put the $70 million in a pipeline? Have they even considered this? Have they considered an alternative fuel? I don't believe we're talking about a bridge fuel. I believe we're talking about a gangplank. Thank you.
I'd like to call Selena Pizer, Marlene Latourelle, and Claire Brown. Ms. Pizer's first.
Good evening, thank you. I am also here to address whether the Public Service Board has calculated the expenses and the hardship and the grief and the sleepless nights that landowners and people who are impacted by this project, whether you have calculated those real costs. I understand that Vermont Gas Systems will be charging back to ratepayers the cost of development and construction of the ANGP, including things like route planning, payments for easements from landowners, the use of the Velcro right-of-way, and contractors helping with negotiations with landowners. I assume that this means that those costs are being included in your economic benefit analysis. I also assume that affected landowners will likewise be reimbursed for the services of independent engineers to assess whether the route plan will impact a septic system, or for an appraisal, and most importantly, for legal representation. To ensure a fair playing field during negotiations and to conserve the monies of individuals that would and should be spent in the Vermont economy. In order to assist the Public Service Board in accurately calculating costs, I have put together a spreadsheet of all of my costs to date from first contact by Vermont Gas through the end of this month. This includes the cost noted already and the other concrete quantifiable cost. I and my family is incurring just during the development phase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Excuse me, Claire Broughton, Broughton. We've heard a lot about contaminated water and soil and utility poles in phase 1. You have not listened or even responded. I live on a suspected aquifer in Moncton with at least one spring. My need requires me to keep that water clean for my neighbors. You still do not listen. Phase 2 landowners face the same health and safety risk. So just so you know, I am not part of the minority of Vermonters who oppose the pipeline. I am part of the majority who do. I am not an extremist. I am not a violent. I am not a bully. I am respectful of Vermonters and I oppose this pipeline. So please listen up. You have heard a lot about contaminated to the experts and recognize that the pipeline cannot possibly meet the 248B standards. The risk to our water, the risk to our safety, the risk of contamination, and the risk of explosions are all to credit to please listen and scrap phase 2.
My name is Marlene Laurel, and I'm from Orwell, Laturelle. I think that IP wants to be cleaner. I applaud them for that. But let them go someplace else for their gas. Yes, it will cost more for them to get it from their own state, but IP is a multi-billion-dollar company. Why is it okay for the state of Vermont to take and spoil its own people's land in order that IP get a good deal? And why is the environmental impact on Vermont land not considered to be as significant as New York land? And isn't Lake Champlain environmentally sensitive? Are we just going to lump our land, our lake, and our people into one big bundle and sell it to IP and Vermont gas systems? Vermont doesn't need IP's bribe of $45 million to get to Rutland faster. If Rutland wants natural gas, Vermont gas systems can build them a pipeline by 2020 by having the people who use the gas pay for it through rate increases, which I believe is the way it's supposed to happen. The phase 2 pipeline is a private good. It's not a benefit to anyone. And asking those people who gain nothing in return to pay so that those who do benefit is an outrage. Itself. And we have a lot of people believing that. I think Vermont should be ashamed of itself for even considering this proposition. If you approve this project, Vermont will go backwards and join many other states that no longer respect their land or their people. And if that happens, Vermont will be no better than any other place to live, and we'll only be fooling ourselves in thinking that it is. I'm asking you, please, no eminent domain for corporate gain.
Right. Yeah. I'd like to call Rusty Swenson, Diane Derrick, and Timothy Fisher.
My name is Rustin Swenson. I'm from Shoreham, Vermont, the area. I am today introducing a new word to the vocabulary of this dialogue, capitalism. Capitalism with an O. Capitalism is the process and the condition whereby agencies of government, whether representing the national capital and government or the state capital and government, are united as one with agents of capital and commerce. These government agencies and agents, facilitators of unlimited economic and environmental encroachment, are typically appointed by someone in power Your officials represent no one and are accountable to no one. When it comes to the actual implementation and enforcement of our founding principles and our laws and our visions for the future, we are rendered absolutely powerless by these unelected, unaccountable, unrepresentative agencies. Rather than guarding for the public good for which they are designated, they become facilitators of unlimited economic and environmental encroachment. Now with the blessing of the Supreme Court and the Citizens United, we have officially moved from 1 citizen, 1 vote to $1, 1 vote. From the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to the EPA to countless banking agencies to the Public Service Board, you have unlimited power to facilitate the destruction of what defines Vermont. First it was the destruction of the Green Mountains, the very defining soul of Vermont. Now you are facilitating the encroachment of a foreign enterprise conveying through our state the product of a process banned in Vermont for its intrinsic severe health and environmental hazard, and delivering that product to another enterprise in another state, and certifying that this is for the public good of Vermont. But ultimately, this is not simply about running a pipeline through someone's backyard in Shore or Cornwall. This is about control of our destiny and our quality of life. We are gathered here today not simply to halt an absolutely intolerable violation of the sovereignty and dignity of our good state, our citizens of Vermont. We are here to declare that today that any law or any interpretation and application of any law that violates the founding principles of this great republic of Vermont and this United States should not be tolerated. Any agency facilitating the perversion of our principles shall be disbanded or reduced to simple advisory function. We all here today have a moral responsibility to honor the principles and preserving the achievements that our fathers so nobly fought and paid for, including the cultural landscape to truly serve the public good. In 1796, just 3 years after independence, this country was facing a vertical collapse of its economy and loss of sovereignty due to a grossly inadequate body of laws, the Articles of Confederation, and the growing encroachment of foreign capital. As a response, a free enlightened there is called for, and I quote, an end to this national humiliation and imbecility. A new constitution was formed with the primary purpose of regulating commerce and trade. Let us once again, in the spirit of 86, reform our relevant laws and agencies of implementation to once again achieve their prophetic function and serving the public good for ourselves and our posterity. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Diane Derrick. There's a faulty assumption that businesses support the pipeline and that people who don't support the pipeline also don't support businesses. It's more accurate to say that opponents want to support local businesses and the local economy. The point is that people do not want to use their own resources, such as land and tax dollars, for the profits of a Canadian utility out-of-state multinational corporation. I am going to read excerpts of a letter that has been signed by over 90 Vermont businesses. It goes like this. We, the undersigned businesses, oppose the proposed fracked gas pipeline and urge the Public Service Board to deny a certificate of public good. We oppose the project for 2 main reasons. It would be bad for public health and the environment, and there are better alternatives available right now. Fracked gas is not a bridge to clean energy, as some have claimed. Instead, it represents a century of further dependency on dirty fossil fuels. Global warming emissions associated with U.S. fracking wells since 2005 total at least 100 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent, and some leading scientists say that fracking may be worse for climate than coal. Beyond its negative implications for climate, fracking requires huge quantities of precious clean water and produces billions of gallons of toxic wastewater and over 450 tons of air pollution each year. Since 2005, at least 2 billion gallons of chemicals have been used in U.S. fracking operations. The good news is that Vermont-owned businesses have the alternatives we need today without expanding the use of fracked gas. Clean energy development, along with weatherization and green building construction, are options that are available and affordable today with the added benefits of producing jobs right here in Vermont. Vermont's brand rests on our respect for the environment and is a valuable asset to our business community. We are committed to maintain that image in actions and not just words. And with costly superstorms like Irene becoming more common, we can't afford not to continue on our path towards a clean energy future. Therefore, we urge the Public Service Board to deny the certificate of public good. My solar panel installation was completed today, and I am proud to say that all labor was supplied by local Vermont businesses.
Timothy Fisher. I just wanted to point out a basic inconsistency with the publicity that Gas Metro's been giving us. They keep telling us that we're going to save a lot of money on heating with this low-price gas, natural gas. At the same time, they own Green Mountain Power. And Green Mountain Power is proposing the use of air-to-air heat exchangers, which someone mentioned in the last meeting. Actually, in this building in March, Kirk Shields from Green Mountain Power presented a workshop on air-to-air heat exchangers and pointed out that they use less energy than any fossil fuel, including natural gas. So it's all a mirage that they're doing. I mean, I know they want to get it to international paper, but in terms of people in Vermont, in terms of their heating and their businesses heating, it's not true.
I'd like to call Stephen Pilcher, Polly Birdsall, and Dale Birdsall.
My name is Steve Pilcher, and I live in the town of Moncton. With contentious issues such as the one under consideration, it is my practice to search for potential common ground. In this case, common ground would seem to be the concept of public good. Our first instinct in defining public good is to use the metrics we have readily to hand. Tax dollars to towns, dollars to be made in profit, rates to ratepayers, potential jobs, and hope for decrease in the cost of energy. For the most part, these are simple, quantifiable numbers and are the standard data used to judge economic benefits of a project. My suggestion is to use a different metric, to use a genuine progress indicator, or GPI, as calculated by the Gunn Institute at UVM. The GPI is a measure of the long-term net benefits of economic activity and exists as a monetized indicator of sustained economic welfare. It takes a standard measure of economic activity, the Vermont state product, and adjusts for such things as net wetland change, cost of non-renewable energy depletion, cost of climate change, cost of water pollution, cost of crime, and so on. In 2012, the Vermont legislature passed Act 113 with the intent that the GPI will assist state government in decision-making by providing an additional basis for budgetary decisions, including outcomes-based budgeting, by measuring progress in the application of policy and programs, and by serving as a tool to identify public policy priorities. Any project that does not increase the Vermont GPI would therefore be deemed as not in the public good. Thank you.
My name is Polly Birdsall, B-I-R-D-S-A-L-L, from Shore. I've been part of this process from the start when I went to the Shore hearings that Vermont Gas. And after months and months of this, I would like to make the following comments. Vermont Gas has shifted its ground several times while I've been public hearings for phase 2. This is precisely what in one of the very first meetings, they were asked how long it would be if phase 2 didn't, ignoring phase 2, how long would it take to do the Middlebury leg of phase 1? And the response then was 14 months. That has changed quite a bit. When asked, catching my how much, what would increase the cost of the natural gas that was being posited